Welcome back to the grind. In this video, we are going to talk about EXP grinding with the recent changes that have come in the past couple weeks. So some of the main things that have been a pain in the butt for leveling lineage dragons is how much EXP it costs to get them to expert level. And I'm starting to realize how much food it costs to get them to expert level. It's ridiculous. A full storage of food doesn't even do 2 levels anymore. And I'm only halfway in terms of levels and overall cost. I'm not even halfway. And so that's a different rant. That's a whole rant on its own, how expensive it is to level up these dragons. So if you're not at endgame tier and you're trying to make a lineage dragon usable, it takes a long time with a lot of grinding to get that up to max level, which at expert is the only time it's really usable, because that's how they were designed, is to be usable at that tier at expert level. By the time you get to that point, you've already moved on 1 or 2 tiers, and so you never get to use these dragons. But I'm determined with Lucian to at least do my best at getting him to expert. I've got him to level 22. That's what I did this event. I bred Lucian. Pretty excited about that. He seems like a very fun hunter to fly. So this breeding event, I did breed Lucian. I also bred Valens. I had to breed Valens first, level him up, and then I could breed Lucian. So I'm pretty excited about that. Hopefully I'll be able to get him to a reasonable level to actually use him on bases and enjoy flying him. Otherwise, it'll just be for like assault events and dungeons when and if they come back around. And pretty soon I'll be going into Abyssal tier. Excited to try out some of those dragons, but as usual, unfortunately, lineage dragons are never that effective for main game use unless you're at end game tier. But that's just the way it is. I'm also going to try and get Itzani to expert level so I can make some gameplay with him. Figure that might be fun. But with the recent changes, we get a lot more EXP potions. So those are reasonable ways to help level up your dragons. But I'm not sure I want to use those EXP potions to expert Lucian because it's going to cost a lot of EXP overall. I think I'd rather save those for when I'm trying to get dragons to breedable to continue in a breeding event, because I mean, these EXP potions, I mean, while these 10 million ones are good, I only have 4 of them, and I would need all 4 of them just for this one level. And I still would fall short. So it really doesn't put a huge dent in experting a dragon at your tier, which is pretty unfortunate. And one of the main things which they have given out recently are new wisdom runes. And if you didn't get them, I hope that they release them in limited time branches again in the future. But I have 2 of these so far. I get 100% additional experience, which is huge for me, especially without elite. The EXP is just so hard to grind, and I have a few other small ones on there which help a little bit, but that wisdom rune is by far making a huge impact on getting this dragon to breedable. So the best way to get EXP is through Atlas Invader runs, because you get the most EXP, especially because you have additional EXP bonuses from your team if you have those bonuses built up. But with the new changes, you can get max EXP from 50% damage on a base as long as it is equal to or greater than your level. So what you can do, and we'll go over and show you that, is if you find a base that just has the farms and mills and it's high enough level for you. So if this ever loads, for me, this base here, I think it's DLXLE, has only farms and mills on the base, and it's level 478, and I'm not quite that level yet, so I get max EXP from running this base. So what I do first is I use my the multipliers, the 5 times, 4 times, and 3 times on Invader when I'm getting my EXP in the morning, or my gold in the morning. But then you can come over here, and I've done this several times, is you can and you can use the EXP boost too. We've been getting lots of those. You can go and hit this base for 50% damage and get max EXP, which is slightly less than what you would get from the Invader because you have bonuses in Atlas for EXP. But if you just and the back 2 buildings are higher level, so if you just kill those back 2 towers on this base anyways, then you get max EXP, which is pretty awesome because it's very quick to do that multiple times. However, it is difficult because if you don't have a strong enough dragon, then you need somebody to come in behind you and clear those towers, or you have to run it with 2 dragons. But you can see, because of the runes and glyphs I have, and because of that, what's it called? The EXP bonus spell I put on, I did get a fair amount of EXP from this run. Now, you did see it didn't really budge that bar a whole lot, so experting this dragon is still going to take a lot of time and effort, which is ridiculous. I'm only at level 22. I have to get to level 50. And as I go into fortification events and get some more levels, my max XP will go up, which will be great. But that's one step closer to this dragon being useless for me, which is pretty disappointing. But then you can just continue doing this repeatedly. And if you, let's say, well, let's do it with a different dragon, like Itsane, which I'm trying to level up. If you have difficulty destroying the towers, then what you can do is bring in a death gaze and either use 1 or 2 depending on how bad or how weak the dragon is for you. And I usually like to disable one of them so it doesn't inhibit me too much. But if you can take out at least one of those towers, then see, and I was too slow, so it didn't work. But if you can take out one of the towers with ammo and only use 1 death gaze, then it's not as expensive. But if you're just forging these death gaze spells all the time, constantly, then you can use this as a way to level up dragons. I wouldn't recommend doing that to get them to expert, because that's a lot of death gaze spells that you'll be using. But if you're doing it just to get a dragon to breedable really quick, get in a few runs, then I feel like that's a pretty effective way of doing it. But man, like, these food costs are just so high once you get them past breedable, especially. It starts to get pretty expensive. And I mean, that's a whole rant. I think they're working on ways to make it a little bit less grueling, and I'm grateful that they've made some changes to EXP, because it's just was ridiculous. Oh, I accidentally went in the wrong base here. It's just ridiculous how much effort and time it takes to get a dragon to breedable. And I mean, well, breedable sometimes, but to expert, because they want these dragons to be used, but nobody can use them because the cost is just way too great to get them to a point where they are usable. Unless you're leveling them up way after the fact, once you're 100 or 200 levels greater than when it was useful, because at that point your max EXP is much higher, so you can actually level them up a lot faster. But if you're at tier, man, it costs a lot, and it's just ridiculous. Now that I'm actually able to get reasonable amounts of XP, especially if I run this base multiple times, it's actually a little bit easier, but I'm getting closer to that point where it's getting a little bit crazy. Like, how many runs am I going to have to do with those EXP bonus spells to get them leveled up? Not to mention how much food it's going to take. So I'm just going to have to slowly chip away at this and hope that I can use him in the future before I'm beyond that tier. Because I think in the next 1 to 2 breeds, I'll be in Abyssal tier. And at that point, my Divines are just going to be so much stronger than Lucian, who's behind. So, I don't know. It just sucks because a lot of these dragons are actually pretty cool, especially at the higher tiers. But you can't really ever use them in a meaningful way because of how ridiculous it is to level them up, unless you're at endgame. But even at endgame, I mean, it still takes a lot of effort to level them up, because I'm at the level that I should be to level up Lucian, and it's taking a ridiculous amount of time. So, I don't know. A little bit disappointed. Hopefully they make some changes to that soon. That would be great, because then we can actually use these dragons and have fun with them, rather than just have them sit there and be a breeding tool. Anyway, sorry for that prolonged rant. I hope the EXP grinding tips were helpful. Hopefully you are also enjoying the increased accessibility to EXP to help us all get our dragons to breedable and advance during breeding events. It is much nicer as far as getting dragons to breedable, but once again, getting them expert is still a chore and a half. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.